Hey everyone, my name is Spin, and today I'm going to share with you my #1 tip to improve in Valorant. So you may have watched some of my other videos on crosshair placement, on economy, on off angles, but you still find that you're losing those 1v1 fights in Valorant. This could be that last final tip that helps you gain momentum in Valorant and start winning those 1v1s. It's not quite as simple as it seems, but I'm just going to come up front and tell you what that tip is. And the tip is, do not dry peek ever. Okay, so what's dry peeking? Basically, dry peeking is when you peek out from an angle without any information or any advantage. So next time you play Valorant, just ask yourself, am I dry peeking an angle right now? And you might find that the answer is probably yes. A lot of players are peeking corners and just praying that they can win a simple gunfight, but Valorant is about so much more than those simple gunfights. There are a lot of CS players that are reverting back to their old CS ways instead of pushing forward and leaning into their agent's utility. When Valorant's beta was first released, 5 devs faced off against 5 pro level streamers. Everyone thought that the streamers would win, but the devs destroyed the streamers. Now, obviously, the devs did have some actually really good players on their team, but obviously everyone thought the streamers could come back and win because those streamers play 9 hours of FPS games a day for a living. Afterwards, the #1 critique from the developers was that the streamers were not using enough recon abilities. There are a lot of abilities in Valorant and other hero shooters, but don't forget, Sova, Cypher, and sometimes Phoenix all have free ways to gain information. Sova has his arrows and his drone, which is free recon, and Cypher has his tripwires and camera for even more free recon. But don't forget, process of elimination is also a viable way to get information. Raze, Brimstone, and Viper count here because they all have abilities that can force enemies out of areas if they are present. See, by knowing where your enemies aren't, you can narrow down your focus to where your enemies might be. Sage and Viper can also wall off certain areas, which can allow you to peek certain angles one at a time so you can gather information safely. To me, all of this is recon. It's lightning. If you share this information with your team, that can be a massive advantage. So what are other ways to gather information in Valorant? Well, obviously, footsteps are a free and easy way. This seems extremely obvious, but I see players dry peeking angles constantly without information. Don't be afraid to wait for information, then push. Again, using abilities are easy ways to gather the general location of enemies. Also, monitoring enemy ability usage is a great way to figure out where your enemies could be. For example, if you see a Viper snakebite land nearby, well, now you know with decent certainty that there is a Viper nearby. You could even take it a step further and visualize where that Viper would need to be in order to hit that snakebite shot, and then obviously peek that angle. In my opinion, you don't necessarily have to have information before you peek if you peek with a friend. That way your friend can easily trade you out. But whether I solo queue or play with friends, I try to peek with a buddy instead of just peeking one by one. It's a relatively safe way to take a corner in which you're confident that an enemy might be. I'm currently playing a lot of Viper, but there's usually a Phoenix or Breach nearby, so I'll just simply ask, hey, let's flash the corner and go together, and most of the time a Phoenix or a Breach will be happy to do so. Again, while you might not have information, you are 1, using an ability to disable opponent vision, and 2, nearly guaranteeing a free kill if your opponent doesn't move away. Another common strategy that's been working for me is to duo peek as defenders with the stim beacon early in the round. This method consistently wins me fights because attackers don't expect a dual peek, and we have a slight advantage because of the stim beacon. But don't forget, it's more advantageous for attackers to trade rather than defenders. So when you're attacking, as long as you peek together and trade, you should still maintain advantage. So you might be asking, why is that the case? Because even though the teams might be even, the smaller the teams get, the more spread out the defenders will have to be to cover all of the sites. Meanwhile, the attackers can coordinate and push a site together. The thing about this tip is that it's so obvious, but once you keep telling yourself, don't dry peek, don't dry peek, don't dry peek. Eventually it will click and you'll start to understand why you've been losing all those fights to begin with. It's because you're dry peeking. You're not peeking with information. You're not peeking with an advantage. You're simply roaming around and hoping that your aim will save you. And you might have great aim, but in Valorant, great aim is not enough. It's a massive factor, perhaps the biggest factor, but it's not enough to win games. So I hope this clicks for you as much as it clicked for me. And if it did, please let me know in the comments below. My name is Spin. Thank you so much for watching. Hey, if you like stuff like this, please go ahead and like and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. Peace and love, everybody.